Welcome everyone to today's webinar on the loyalty and API flywheel, creating connected membership with Apigee and Google Cloud. Before we get started with the presentation, I want to remind everyone that all attendees have been muted and the presentation will be recorded and sent out. We do encourage everyone to get involved in the discussion by including any questions you may have in the Q&A tool within the platform. There will be time at the end for the speakers to answer a few of your questions. And if we don't get a chance to answer your question live, we will definitely follow up with you after the webinar. And now I would like to introduce our speakers. We have Martin Mehalchin, EVP of Loyalty, and Lou Powell, EVP of Solutions and Innovation. We also have Brad Nagel joining us as the Google Client Partner for PK. And now I will let Martin and Lou take away.
Great, thanks, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. Martin Mehalchin, as Chelsea mentioned, I'm the EVP of Loyalty here at PK and have the privilege of leading our Forrester recognized loyalty team here at PK, and I also look after our retail and consumer clients as their executive sponsor. So really glad everyone could make it today and happy to share some of our perspective on loyalty and how APIs can really deliver on that connected member experience. And joining me as well today is Lou Powell, my colleague here at PK. So Lou, to introduce yourself.
Hey, well, welcome everyone. I'm Lou Powell, and I'm the EVP of Solutions and Innovation at PK, and I lead the API team, which has been recognized the last couple of years by Google as the API North America Partner of the Year. So our teams are delivering on app modernization, experience, API, and a myriad of solution-oriented ways to drive value for customers.
Great. So Lou and I are going to chat about these topics for about the next 30 minutes or so, and then there'll be ample opportunity for Q&A from those of you joining us today at the end, and we'll probably wrap up a little before the top of the next hour. In terms of what we'll be covering, we'll be really looking at how loyalty and membership is becoming increasingly strategic for many of our clients, many sectors, many industries. But the challenges associated with that, because to really do it effectively, you have to integrate it across your experience and MarTech stack. And with some companies running up to 90 plus different solutions in that stack, the gaps in customer data and the friction in the experience can become a substantial challenge. So we hope you'll leave this webinar understanding how the construct of membership can help enable connected experiences, why you need an API strategy to complement your loyalty and membership strategy, how you can use Apigee and Google Cloud to create that direct connectivity, and then a look at an event-driven architecture as really the state of the art for bringing all this to life and enabling your enterprise. So I'm going to start us off with a little overview of the state of loyalty in business today and PK's philosophy on loyalty. So our philosophy really boils down to a simple thought, right? And it's that loyalty is not a program. Loyalty is an outcome, and it's something you earn from your consumers or your clients. You don't necessarily buy it with points and financial rewards and discounts. And we look at loyalty across two dimensions, behavioral loyalty and emotional loyalty. So behavioral loyalty is what you'd expect, right? It's that increased transaction count, increased engagement with your brand and digital channels on social, right? The traditional measures of loyalty that are fairly easy to track and instrument. But emotional loyalty is the more valuable of the two, because if you think about it, there's some brands out there like Apple and Patagonia that I think we would all agree enjoy high emotional loyalty from their core consumer. And they do it without, any kind of program or, traditional points and tier structure that is usually associated with loyalty when it's a program. So emotional loyalty is really about that advocacy, about the consumer engaging deeply with your brand, advocating for your brand, becoming almost a part of your brand DNA. And in those cases, then, the outcomes you see from that is the consumer will, go out of their way to continue to do business with you, to shop your stores, shop your website, benefit from your services, etc. So that's how we at PK at a very high level, we think about loyalty, really driving that outcome, and the program is just a means to drive the outcome, and then looking at driving loyalty across the two dimensions of behavioral loyalty and emotional loyalty. So if we double click on that just a bit, right? So when we think about membership as the broader experience and loyalty as the outcome, there's some core principles we look at in terms of brand membership. And some of the brands on the right are ones that we consider best practice in the space in different ways, and some of them are our clients, but some of them aren't, right? But these are just companies who do these things well. So if you've done the job right, your membership program is going to alter the way consumers think and feel about your brand, provide you competitive differentiation in your sector, and potentially serve as a platform to innovate around your experience. So the principles we look at is the program or strategy needs to enhance and deliver the unique brand mission and value proposition. Really thinking about ease, convenience, and speed, especially for brands like, say, Walgreens to the right, where you're not a passion brand like a Nike. If you're selling a product that's a everyday convenience, you really want to remove friction from the experience, use membership to do that, and drive that ease, convenience, and speed for your consumer. But then if you are want a passion brand where consumers really connect to the meaning of your brand, or the activities that you support are really passions or hobbies for those consumers, then you can really look at enriching and connecting those brand interactions across all channels with rich member-only content, exclusive access to product, early access to product, value-added digital tools and services like Nike's done with their Run Club and Training Club apps. And then finally, giving the member control, choice, and flexibility over how they want to define their experience. Some of the travel companies, have done this very well. Hilton with their app in terms of, being able to select your room before you check in, using your phone as your digital key, selecting your benefits from a menu in the program. Uber's also done this well in terms of choice of rewards. So that's the final principle there. And so looking at membership as a business model, right, I think maturity curves are familiar to most of you from different contexts, right? Whether that's service maturity, IT maturity, but there's also a membership business model that we look at, right? And so down at the left are the traditional kind of those program versions of loyalty that I was talking about at the beginning, where it's really focused on driving promotions. It feels like a coupon program. The next step up from that is a rewards program where rewards are offered in exchange for transactions. Most brands have moved beyond those today and are offering some sort of experiential wrapper around their program, or have anchored their program completely on the experience, whether those are targeted or broader, where the loyalty and membership is really stitched through the entire experience. And then the most advanced brands, right, membership has really become part of how they organize themselves. It's managed as a profit center. Membership and loyalty are managed like a product. And it's integrated across the enterprise. So it's not just a function of the marketing team anymore. It's across marketing, service, operations, and your digital organization. And then if you look even further up the curve, not shown on this slide, but beyond organizationally integrated, where we think this is going next is what I would call ecosystem integrated. And that's the concept of connected membership. And that's brands with a common consumer collaborating together to deliver a membership experience across their common base. So let me give you a couple of examples of that. So Uber, their rewards program is relatively new. It's been in the market for about 3 years. They've had significant success with membership and lift from that program. And if you look at the rewards that they offer, they started out with just Uber Cash, and basically, you took some rides, and every once in a while you'd get $5 off your next ride with Uber Cash. But they have significantly shifted that model now to a partner-focused model where they have a rewards center, and they have rewards available that are complementary to their brand, from Starbucks, from Jersey Mike's, SiriusXM, even Rosetta Stone, and then the ability to donate your Uber points to select charities. So if you think about the integrations that it takes to put something like that into effect, right? That's a significant level of ecosystem integration to make a rewards platform like that work seamlessly. And so kudos to Uber for having done that while they're still fairly early in the life cycle of their program. A different example is Nike. So Nike is a notable program in that they were really pioneered the concept of membership without points and tiers. And they made it all about an enhanced Nike experience if you were in a logged in state as a Nike member. So one of the ways that comes to life in the real world is at Nike stores. They have a feature called App at Retail. That's a digitally assisted mobile shopping experience that significantly enhances your shopping experience in their flagship stores if you have the Nike app on your phone and you're logged in. So things like not having to find someone to bring you a shoe from the back of the house, you just scan the shoe, know whether it's there in your size. If it is, you press a button to have it delivered to you, or you can scan a QR code next to a mannequin and learn about all the products on that mannequin, the shoes and the apparel. And then they have various experiences and promos that you can engage with in the store by being logged into that App at Retail experience. So a couple of years ago, they got together with their largest wholesale partner, which is Foot Locker, and they turned that experience live in a flagship Foot Locker door in New York City. So Nike members could go to the Foot Locker location. It was in Washington Heights in New York, and use those same Nike app features, but at a Foot Locker store. So if you think again about the level of integration that it takes to make that experience work, right? So in a Nike store, it's integration between the consumer-facing layer and the mobile apps and their back-end systems around store inventory and point of sale. So extending that out and integrating those with partner systems, right? That's a significant challenge, but one that they've executed flawlessly. And so, Lou, I mostly work with retail and consumer brands. You work with a broader set of industries than I do, or do you see, applications for this concept of connected membership in other sectors?
Yeah, especially when you start talking about those more emotional connections, and you start looking at industries like BFSI and banking specifically, where they relied so heavily on this. Once you made a decision for a bank, there was this just inherited loyalty that just happened because you have a bank and you don't move banks, where the millennials are not loyalists like that. They're looking at feature and ecosystem, and they're looking at the benefits of and the conveniences. So this idea of creating emotionally engaging experiences at the bank is going to be very critical to them retaining these millennial audiences. And I think that you're seeing a lot of that in healthcare as well, where, you know, the opportunity is to create that, you know, a lot like what we see in the airline industry. You know, I'll fly for a little bit more money because the convenience and the experience that I get through the rewards program on my preferred carrier is better than the cheaper flight, but I'm willing to pay for it because it's such a great experience. And that's the opportunity for the providers in the healthcare space. Is why would someone choose to potentially go out of plan to have an experience that is easy, connected into the ecosystem, exceptional, and makes life easy on them as a healthcare provider? And that's the aspiration they have to have, knowing that they've got very little control over the plan that gets chosen.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I kind of see a pattern here too, because, you know, a lot of this is driven right in the long run by disruption, right? So brands in the retail and consumer space, they had their consumers' expectations reset, you know, about a decade ago by experiences like Uber and Airbnb and some of the experiences you get with Google in terms of, you know, Google Maps integration. And that, you know, reset the consumer's experience of, you know, what they get from a retailer or you know, from a brand like Nike, and the retailers and brands that are being successful today responded to that. Some of the examples I just talked about, and you know, and I think next up, right, you're looking at the fintech disruption in the banking space, right, and then new entrants also entering the healthcare space and trying to basically, you know, disrupt the healthcare space from an experience perspective. So the legacy players are looking to membership and connected experiences to address that.
Yeah, and I think that where we're at right now is that there's a really great understanding and respect that that's where people need to go. But IDG had a nice, you know, or IDC had a nice little call out yesterday in their 2022 predictions, where they said businesses, you know, about 70% of IT organizations are recognizing that they need to be more connected and partnering with the business in order to bring those aspirations to a reality. And that's where the gap is. It's both sides know they need to do it, but they need to figure out how to work more symbiotically together to make those aspirations of this is what we want to deliver into realities.
Right. So just, you know, quick overview here, right? So Google and PK, you know, strong partners and really well positioned to help our clients, our mutual clients and brands with accelerating their loyalty transformation. So if you look at what Google brings to the table, right? So world leading capabilities around customer data management, which is really at the heart of all of this. The ability to personalize the digital experience, deliver content across all channels, scale your digital commerce on Google Cloud, and then of course the culture of rapid innovation that both companies share. And then PK, the services that we layer on top of that really are the strategy definition in the first place, right? So tying it back to both, you know, the business outcomes you're trying to drive, but then also tying it back to, you know, your consumer and what their needs are and what's going to resonate with them. And then clicking down from that to the actual, you know, customer experience mapping and visioning of what that future state should look like. And then as you implement the program, you know, various services around content management, a robust data and analytics team that can help with instrumentation and measurement. And even, you know, creating things like a member engagement score that you can then tie to business outcomes and really see the connection between participation in the membership experience and the business outcomes you're trying to drive. So Lou, I think you're going to take us through a little bit of the role of APIs in all of this and
Sure.
how we can bring these connected and seamless experiences to life.
Yeah, absolutely. So hit that next one. There you go. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is this idea that, there's some statistics that were released at the beginning of this year by several of the research firms. And they're all in the same category where they're saying, essentially, they're all saying that about 70% of projects either fail, deliver less than they were intending to, or are delayed in delivering because of lack of connectivity to back-end business systems. So when we look at this environment that we're working in, that we live in, we're seeing that experiences and the demand for evolving experiences and the behaviors and the transformations of the consumer are happening so quickly that we need to be in this continuous state of evolution and contribution in order to make our ecosystem something that is compelling and drives value for the consumer. And in order to do that, we've got to have these ready to use capabilities that represent what our company does. And that's the big disconnect, is how do we create things that represent what we're trying to do in the marketplace to drive value, that are simple and easy to use and can be self-service consumed. So hit that next slide there, Martin. So this is a way that we like to think about these capabilities, that democratization and consumer independence are the hallmarks of a great API program. And when I talk about that, I use those two phrases or ideas independently, intentionally. And one of them is democratization. And it says all the things that I need access to, all the capabilities, the ability to get a rewards account, the ability to get real-time additions to that, the ability to understand activities that are happening with a customer, all of these things are available to me to consume in new experiences, whether they're created at the point of sale in the store or by the call center or in a mobile application or through some kind of beacon technology, et cetera, that all of those things are available to the development teams to consume. So that's one thing, right? They're there, they live, they exist, and they're ready for me to connect to. But that second idea is consumer independence. And that means that not only do I have the right capability available to me, but it's actually built in such a way that it makes sense to me and I can use it without having to go to, the IT guru who understands the system that sits behind it, who gives me, the keys of knowledge to unlock the value in it, because I can't do it on my own. And consumer independence is this idea that we've packaged all of these capabilities, whether it's events or APIs, in such a way that the development teams can use them by themselves. And our idea is that they are finding, they are understanding, they are testing, they're getting a key, and they are actually using your APIs for your events and your APIs in 15 minutes. And that's what our marketplace needs to look like. So when I bring on an agency to build a mobile application, or if I bring on an internal team to work on our point of sale to add new features, that I'm not waiting for this huge amount of work to be done to integrate those teams together. I've got instantly consumable capabilities to drive value. So that's the idea. And so this is what we look at. And when you think about consumable, right? Consumer independence, we look at it from these perspectives. The APIs are a primary mechanism, for system to system connectivity, and productization aligns your APIs with the purpose that they're being used for. So we look at productizing our APIs. And when we say that, what we look at is tilting them to the consumer to solve their problem. So when you look at that, we've got the app developer on one side, and we've got the API on the other side. And then on the other end, you've got the application, the app user. And then on the back side, you've got the systems, right? But we need to connect all of that together very quickly, and productizing it so that it makes sense for the purpose it's going to be used for is the best way to do that. So hit that next slide. We'll see if I can make this a little less techy, but these are the things that we look at when we're productizing is these three principles. The first one is this: does the API or does the capability that IT has put forth to be used over and over again, right? So I like to think of them as, critical business capabilities. Do those capabilities, do they solve a problem that you're commonly trying to solve with your audience, with your market? Is it something that you're doing over and over again through all of your experiences? because those are the things that we're trying to do. So the things that we should be producing as capabilities shouldn't represent our business systems, because often those are out of phase with what our consumers are trying to accomplish. So we should really be closing the gap by creating capabilities that align directly with the problems that are being solved by our consuming channels and experiences, because that is where we're going to reduce all the friction, right? So problem number one, solve the right problem, align with the job being done. And then the second one is fit. So just because you're solving the problem doesn't mean you've got the best product, right? So you may have a great product and say, I've got a mapping software and Google's got a mapping software. But what we find out is that Google's mapping software covers 98% of the United States very, very thoroughly. And then this other person's got mapping software and it doesn't. It covers a smaller portion of the United States, or it's not so easy to use. It uses, old technology, and it's very difficult to get into. So it solves the problem, but it doesn't solve it in a really great way. So the problem is important, solve the right problem, but also solve it in a way that makes it easy and delightful, is what I like to say, to consume. And then the last part of it is quality. And that is really important, that the availability, the uptime, the timeliness of the data, the veracity or the accuracy of the data, all of these things play into the quality of the product. So in order for you to have a great product that your consumers benefit from, it has to have all those things, right? You got to solve the right problem. It has to fit it correctly. It's got to be a great, delightful experience. And it has to be quality. It has to be the right data. It has to be truthful and reliable, and the uptime and the response time all have to be there. So that's the idea of creating great products, all three of those components.
Yeah, and Lou, I think this, overall concept is so important, and just to broaden it out even further, right? What we see with our best practice clients that are really, kind of high on that maturity curve that I saw earlier, at organizational integration or even, ecosystem integration, right? Is they're managing their loyalty experience as a product as well, right? So it's not a program that's just managed as a stable static thing, or it's not managed as like a series of marketing campaigns, which are some of the more traditional ways of managing loyalty. They're managing their loyalty experience as a product and treating it like any other digital endpoint that they would apply a roadmap and a backlog and those product management disciplines too.
Yeah. I love that. And our delivery transformation group does a great job of helping us tie those two worlds together. So where our loyalty is a top-down look that says we've got this product at the top that meets the needs of an audience or audiences, and then it's using all of these capabilities underneath, where the API product looks up and it's a specific capability that's got many manifestations or consumers on the top side. There's a product owner down there that looks at the loyalty program as a consumer and as a constituent audience. So yeah, I love that. So typical challenges, these are the challenges that we see. And I kind of hit on this or alluded to this. It's the API doesn't exist. So this is going to stop me from providing value, or the API is in the queue for next year and I can't do it quickly. So this is another challenge that PK is constantly being asked to come in and help companies create efficiency in the development of APIs. How do we develop things quickly, utilizing frameworks, automation, and security practices that allow us to build secure things quickly so that we can close that gap and that time gap? So big challenge in APIs not being available until later in the future because there's a development bottleneck. The expert I need to explain it isn't available. This is probably the number one. They haven't productized it. It's not simple and easy to use, and you need tribal knowledge and technical knowledge and black box explanations to tell you actually how to integrate with the mystical machine. That's my least favorite reason, but most common is that we haven't done a good job of creating interfaces in IT that make sense to consumers. And then API change requires changes to my app. That's a big problem where we look at it and say, I want to make a change to the API, but we haven't built change management in a thoughtful way. And if I change it, it's going to impact other consumers. So that's a big challenge to overcome. Inconsistency is another one. And then, of course, security, like I talked about. But those are the things that are stopping companies. And those are the things that I think we look at and say, how do we streamline and create programs that allow for value in your loyalty experience to drive the motivations of how we build things from an IT perspective? And then this is something that Martin touched on really well. And I think that the challenge that we have in the IT side of the world is that we often see this as the market side, but the reality is it dramatically is going to be impacting the IT side as we move into the future. So we're really focused on our systems, right? We're focused on our systems and our consumers and how they get connected to the value that we derive from our customer and how that ties into a business system or how we're providing the information and measuring the interactivity with that customer. And that's great, except for when you're building this ecosystem. You now have this broader view that says, am I building capabilities that allow me to do things that don't necessarily drive direct value for my company, but they create great value for my customer? They're creating a better experience. They're creating a well-rounded product. They're creating something that makes my product easier to choose because it fits more neatly into their experience. So we're looking at, a broader connectivity into third-party, systems and platforms and partnerships and collecting and managing data that may be outside of things that you manage in your core business systems, because that information makes it easier for us to create delightful experiences for our customers. So as IT starts looking at this new way of creating emotional connectivity, like that idea, that Martin was talking about, and Prime, Amazon's got Amazon Prime, and then they've got the Alexa that you can now integrate with to order products in an automated fashion. And we've expanded the ecosystem. And then Alexa gives me the ability to tie into, I can start my BMW by just saying, hey, Amazon, start, or hey, Echo, start my BMW, and through IFTTT, I can now connect and start my car. So we've got these broad ecosystem perspectives that we need to take into consideration, and how do we enable those in IT? And I think a lot of the things that we're talking about are the foundational concepts to build that capability. And this last piece is a little bit more techy, but it's that idea that I think most companies really are starting to look at and say, wow, this is really a critical component to our story. And that is, most of our systems, we're collecting data in real time, but we're not able to consume that data in real time. So looking at how do we create new architectures that allow us to look across multiple business systems and multiple contributors and make that data available in real time, not just for contribution, but for consumption. So this idea of creating event-driven architectures that are paired with APIs so that we can subscribe to a behavior like an order being updated. And that information can be forwarded to a group of people in the warehouse, and it could potentially be sent to a messaging system that's going to send out a message telling them something they can expect, or to a supply chain system that's going to look at the implications of part of that order being available or not. So you've got all of these independent contributors that can subscribe to that event and now respond to it. And the big deal is not that they couldn't do that before, but they can now do it in a disconnected or autonomous fashion. So everybody can go independently consume data, and we can have people who can independently contribute data. So whether it's a consumer activity or it's, a change in something happening with a shipment that happened because a truck got a sensor, a notification that an engine was running hot. And they said the truck is going to be pulled over and we're going to send out another truck to pick up that trailer. And we go, wow, what we know now is that, 452 shipments are going to be late. So we're going to notify all these customers immediately, and we're also going to do something for them. And so all of those activities are instantaneously made available and reacted to before the driver even notices that his truck is running hot and gets the notice on the dash. So it's that kind of thing that we're looking at in the real-time economy.
Great. So Chelsea, do we have some Q&A coming in?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you guys, by the way, for your presentation, Martin and Lou. So now we'll jump into the Q&A. And as a reminder, you can still submit questions during this time using the feature below. First question submitted is, I work mostly with manufacturers and industrial clients that don't have traditional points or a rewards program. How does loyalty or connected membership apply to them?
Yeah, and again, I think you just, you look at it from the client, experience out, because right, some of those we're talking about B2B, so not necessarily consumer, but look at it from your client experience out, back in rather. And you don't that doesn't necessarily need to include points or some of those more familiar mechanisms from the consumer world, but really think about, how do I make the experience better when those clients are have self-identified and are logged in and are members on my platform. So reducing friction in your experience, creating value-added features, benefits, tools, or content for those clients or those consumers those are common principles that I think can be applied in any sector. Lou, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just exactly in alignment with what you were saying, Martin. We have a healthcare payer that we were working with that was working with brokers, and the brokers work with tons of the healthcare payers, right? And what they were finding is that they were able to get much greater connectivity and drive greater value by creating direct connectivity to the broker systems, as well as giving features like the ability for a broker to find out how many sales they had, how many were pending, how many had cleared, and giving an instantaneous feedback on that. That all of a sudden motivated the broker to want to sell more of their product because it was a better experience and they got better data.
Yeah, I worked in the insurance industry 25 years ago when I was fresh out of college, and that what you're describing sounds like a completely different world than the one I remember. So.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, the world they're coming from is batch data feeds on a monthly basis if you're lucky.
Right. Print the loss runs and send them by mail.
Yes.
If I'm dating myself.
Perfect. Another question we have is, do I start by building APIs to enable connected membership and then step down the loyalty path, or do I start with defining my strategy first? Lou, can you take this one?
Yeah, I'll bounce it over to Martin pretty quick, because my answer is going to be APIs are capability enablers. And I think that so often we start with technology, systems, and what we've got, and that is the absolute wrong answer. The right answer is, what do we need to do to satisfy the jobs that my consumers are trying to do, and understand that well, and then do a gap analysis of where you're at, and then build your most highly needed capabilities first to drive the most value. So that would be my perspective. Martin?
Yeah, absolutely right. So whether it's APIs and architecture choices or platform selection choices, right? So that's those always need to come downstream. So you need to start with strategy, right? Think about the business outcomes you're trying to drive, and then leverage existing consumer insights, or if you don't have existing insights to leverage, then commission new research or new analytics to really understand that consumer base and what's going to create value for them, what is going to incrementally affect their behavior, what services, experiences, and offers are going to do that, right? And then create your experience strategy around to drive retention and loyalty, and then the technology choices should flow from that.
Perfect. Next question we have up is, Google doesn't have a loyalty program. How does PK work with Google to facilitate loyalty and connected membership?
Yeah, so Brad, who's joined us as well today, is our resident expert on that and making that happen every day in the market. So Brad, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so hi everyone, welcome back. So yeah, at PK we leverage Google technology in several different ways. One is with Google Cloud. We build loyalty scaffolds that are the plumbing, if you will, around loyalty products or homegrown applications that facilitate loyalty. So all the data engineering, data movement pieces, in Google Cloud. the functionality of data AI ML as well. And then, obviously Google has a big MarTech presence. So applications like Google Marketing Platform, Google Ads, and Google Analytics and GA4 track all those different interactions with the brand. And then lastly, obviously, we touched on it earlier, but we use components like Apogee and Apogee X to wrap those different components and APIs and isolate those systems so that we can have different developer groups and different MarTech groups operate independently. So basically, Google acts as kind of the framework and the foundation to enable a lot of these different programs.
Yep. And I'll pile on the we're seeing this trend now where we're running into third and fourth generation ERP, and those new generations are starting to become more SaaS oriented. So we're seeing these massive migrations from on-prem to SaaS oriented delivery of ERP. And the big challenge that we're talking to customers about is this transformation from all of the integrations that they had into these systems. They're now going to have to rewrite a majority of them, because a lot of these solutions were rewritten to take advantage of cloud architecture, which is brilliant. But the downfall or the lesson learned is that tight coupling of the ERP, or that tight coupling even of your loyalty system to your experiences is dangerous over time. And you really want to control that. You really want to control how you're authenticating and authorizing, what information you're getting, and how you're connecting those experiences to your downstream systems, so that you can create that abstraction layer with Apogee X, so that you can change those capabilities downstream without disrupting all of your upstream consumers. And you can be very orchestrated about how you do that without having to disrupt your value chain.
Thanks, Lou and Brad. Another question submitted, what are some of the ways that PK acquires data in order to help build a loyalty strategy?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that, and I saw that one in the chat, and I'll talk about that in a couple of different ways. So, if we're talking about the beginning phases of an initiative, right, where maybe the brand doesn't have a loyalty program yet, or they've got one that's become stale and tired, right, then the way we like to do it is to combine quant and qual market research, up to and including kind of co-creation sessions with consumers, combine that with deep analytics against your customer files. So if you have a loyalty program, applying AI and ML to the data from that existing program and the member behavior within it. If you don't have a program, then we'll look at your e-commerce data, marry that to email and other digital engagement data to really create that analytic profile. Marry those insights together to really create that 360 view, and then derive from there the consumer, both the friction points, but also the potential accelerators in your experience where consumers have shown a propensity to spend more or exhibit other behaviors that drive your business outcomes. So that's in the design phase. But then once you have a program live, right, so one of the core benefits and the reason brands and companies pursue loyalty as a strategy in the first place is to get, whether you call it zero-party data or first-party data, but really that that direct data from consumers volunteering data about themselves, or creating data by exhibiting behaviors within your experience. The simplest example is Clickstream. And so there, what we've built with a lot of our clients is what we call progressive profiling, right? So, typically upon enrollment in a program, you share some, basic contact and demographic data, like, an email or a phone number, and then maybe, age, gender, shoe size, right? In a shoe company example. But then what we do is we create engagement experiences around the core loyalty program that encourage the consumers to come back, and in a way that's fun and meaningful and authentic to the brand, share more about themselves. So for, one client in the casual shoe industry, we had a poll in the loyalty experience around, tell us about the first time you bought a pair of shoes from this particular brand, right? And in the first 6 weeks of that program, that brand got 35,000 first pair stories that they were then able to, use as UGC for social and their digital marketing. But it also was the beginning of building just a rich attitudinal data set around their consumer base and their core fans.
And again, keep those architecture considerations in mind as you're building things that are contributed to by Clickstream and Google Analytics, et cetera, that you may have homegrown solutions inside that those solutions don't work with. So putting APIs in front of them that give you those consistent behaviors to contribute to your machine learning or your analytics stores or your big data systems. And then the derivative data, productizing and eventing that so it can be self-service consumed, makes that real-time world go around.
All right, we have time for just a few more questions. How do you measure loyalty as an outcome?
Yeah, so I referenced that briefly, earlier in the session, right? So what we do with our most advanced clients, who have the data structured well from the beginning and have their programs instrumented, is we'll derive what's called a member engagement score. And then we'll tie that score back to the business outcomes they're trying to drive, whether that's increased transaction volume, increased basket size, what have you. And again, through applying AI and ML techniques, we can get to a level where if it's a program with with polls and quizzes as some of the engagement activities, we can show the client or work with the client to help them instrument their program so that they know this type of consumers who respond to this type of poll are most likely to increase their basket size year over year, and really understand the health of that customer asset, assign an engagement score to every member, and then really understand what levers in the program are working and need to be amplified, and which ones were maybe tests that didn't pan out as well and can be sunsetted.
So that's all the time we have for today. If we haven't had a chance to answer the remaining questions, we'll be sure to do so offline. Thank you again, Martin and Lou, for your time today. And thank you to everyone that joined our webinar. As a reminder, we will be sending out a recording of the presentation in the next day or so. So please keep an eye out for that email in your inbox. And thank you again, everyone. We hope to see you in our future webinars.